Hey, this is Eric with Eric's Barbecue and More, and today we're going to be doing pulled pork on the Old Country Pecos. And I thought I would highlight the way that I do pulled pork, and I think it's the easiest way to do it. So stay tuned. All right, so we've got a 9-pound bone-in pork butt, pork shoulder, Boston butt, whatever you want to call it. We pick these up from Sam's. We buy them when they're on sale, throw them in the freezer, thaw them out for an occasion just like this. So we're going to be using a binder of Louisiana hot sauce, and today we're going to be using the butt rub by Bad Byron, which you can get at Academy, or you can order these online with Amazon. All right, so I always like to have a good coal base, so I always start with a hopper full charcoal. And we have our cherry wood here, so I like to find a nice piece. Nothing too big to start off with. Something like that bad Larry right there. And I'll take the end of it, level these coals out, and just throw it on there. It won't take long for that to fire up because it is good and seasoned. And as soon as you get a good flame going, you'll start shutting things down. So I usually shut the firebox off first. You see the smoke will start rolling into there. Make sure that you're wide open there. Close that in. As you can see, that log is now caught real good. And it should start to draw into this cook chamber. Another thing that's important to watch out for is your wind direction. So right now, the wind is kind of going this way. We don't have much of a breeze at all today, but if this was a breezy day and the wind was going this direction, then you'd get air come in to the fire or to the smokestack, and you would get smoke pushing out this end. So if that was the case, I would flip this around and have the cook chamber on this side, smokestack on this side. You always want to keep the wind direction this way. If it's a swirling wind, there's not a lot you can do about that. You're just going to have to fight it. But it'll take a minute, several minutes for this to get warmed up and good and going. I'm going to go and prep the pork shoulder. All right, so we've got our pork butt. We're gonna do some light trimming. One good thing about pork is it's really easy. There's not a ton of trimming that you need to do. Mainly just removing anything that's kind of loose. Chunks like that. But there's nothing really very special about the trimming of this. Get a sharp knife though. Sharp knives are really good. I just picked this one up and made it a lot easier to take off some of this stuff. Never cut towards yourself. Kidding. I'm just taking off some of these big chunks that won't render. But like I say, there's not a lot to it. So during this step, I have a dirty hand and I have a clean hand. So I've got my knife in my clean hand and I turn things with this dirty hand. That allows me to put the different things on here without having to constantly wash my hands. But keeping things clean is important. Just gotta make sure you keep track of which hand's the clean hand and which hand is the dirty hand. I always have left hand, dirty hand. I'm right-handed, so right hand is the clean hand. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of this binder on here. I have found that in pork rub, this doesn't come out as strongly as something like a pork loin where you're not cooking it as long. On pulled pork, there's just a little hint of spice there. So that's why I like to do it. But you could also use mustard here. Mustard won't give it any flavoring whatsoever. It'll just give the rub something to stick to. But I kind of like this stuff because it does, sometimes you can taste a little bit of a spice that you don't have in your rub that I kind of like. And I really liked it on pork loin that I did. The spices come out really well. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm cooking this one with the fat cap on the top side. I've done it both ways and I really haven't, jury's still out for me on which side is the best side to do it on. So I'm still kind of playing with that. But I don't think at the end of the day it really matters with my pit. But if you have a pit that has a really hot side, you want to put the fat towards the hot side to protect the meat. But we'll show you that later. So we're just going to sprinkle this on. It's important to pat the rub in. Don't rub the rub in, even though it's called a rub. It's kind of ironic, but you just want to pat it. If you rub it, it won't do right. It'll kind of smear the rub, and you just want it to stay where you put it. So don't forget the edges. All right, the time is 6:42. Pit temp was about 260. And I ran out of gloves, so I gotta use my hands, which isn't recommended, but I do it one-handed, so I have a clean hand. And then we're gonna stick an internal probe. Make sure you don't hit the bone. Put that about midway. We've got our probe temp, pit temp here, and internal temp there. Water's bubbling. All right, so the pit temp now is 266. I'm gonna try to maintain between 250 and 300. When it gets down to about 250, it'll maintain for a while and then it'll start to drop. As soon as I see it starting to drop, I'll throw another log on. Make sure it's got good smoke, which we have right here. The smoke you do see is a nice blue color, translucent. That's what you want. You don't want puffy white smoke. Another thing you can do while you're cooking your pork butt is you can watch YouTube. I highly recommend Eric's Barbecue and More. Hit that like, subscribe, and go ahead and tap that notification bell. It says on my analytics that only like 1% of you are subscribed to my videos, so I sure would like it if you're here for even a brief moment. Hit that subscribe button. Well, I tell you, this has been a really good cook so far. As you can see, that smoke is it's got a blue tint to it. Maintaining our fire really well. Got the door fully closed, and you got a good flame inside there. That's exactly what you want. And as soon as that log breaks down, you'll have a nice coal bed. All right, we're about 2 hours in and it is time to spray. I've added some lights out here so that we can continue this cook, but it is a beautiful evening. Here's what we got so far. Looking pretty. In this bottle, we have mostly apple cider, a little bit of water, apple cider vinegar, and water. I'm just gonna hit just to make sure you get plenty of moisture on there. I need to turn that knob so it's not such an extreme spray. You want to not knock off any of that lovely seasoning that's on there. It's gonna make for some beautiful bark. All right, we're at 3 hours in. Temps are at 262. They dropped down from that 300 that we had earlier, and we're able to get them to stay around that 262, 250 mark. So we're gonna space. Oh yeah, looking really good. Get this adjusted. There we go. Get that nozzle adjusted so it's not knocking anything off if you don't want to. Make sure you get the back. Keep forgetting to silence this. The most annoying sound in the world. Alright, just keep repeating. Our logs are starting to burn down a little bit. I should probably just leave that one versus putting in that one up there. I think I will, and then just come out when that one burns down a little more. All right, so it's getting late. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and this thing has been smoking for a good 6 hours. And this would be the time when you would wrap it and put it back in the smoker. Well, in my opinion, you put this in a pan, cover it with foil, put it in your oven at 220 degrees. It'll smoke through the night. You don't have to keep feeding your smoker. And I have really good results with it. So that's what I'm about to do. Fire up the oven, 220 degrees, put this thing in there. I'll keep the internal probe in there. It'll tell me when it gets to around 200. I'll get up, it's probably gonna be about 6 or 7 in the morning. Check it, see, probe it for tenderness. If it's good, pull it out of the oven, and then I will let it rest in the cooler for 4 or 5 hours. Shred it. I'll walk you through that process tomorrow. But for now, I'm gonna put this in the oven and go to bed. All right, so it's the next morning. This thing finished at 5:30 a.m. I came in, basically just turned the oven off. It's now 7:15, and I've got someplace to be this morning, so I'm gonna go ahead and shred this, even though it's still internal temp of 196. And as you can see, it's super tender. Just like sticking into a stick of butter. So we know this is ready to go. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this over to here so that I can drain off the au jus, or jus. This is really good for when you reheat. So I'll take this and I will put this in the refrigerator, and actually it's already starting to separate. The oil will float to the top, the jus will be at the bottom, and you'll scrape off the oil, and then you've got raw or pure juice that you can melt back into the pork when you reheat. You can get you a set of these gloves if you ever run into a situation where you got to pull your pork when it's at 200 degrees. Ideally, I would wait until the pork cools down to about 165 or so. First thing I'll do, pull that bone out. The other thing, by letting it rest a little longer, it makes it easier to pull as well. But pretty clean bone. Now just get to pulling. We're gonna eat this for dinner tonight, so I'm gonna get it in the refrigerator, let it cool off, and then we'll just reheat it in the oven. I do try to pull out some fat when I can.